What was the fastest way you've seen someone ruin their life? A couple of guys in my hometown were looking for something to steal so they could sell it to buy drugs. They come to a house where no one was supposed to be home, and one guy gets out of the car and goes to the house to steal a grill. A friend of the homeowner happened to be there and came out when he stepped onto the porch. He tells the friend that he was looking for his dog, so the guy walks out into the yard to help look for it. The would-be robber panics and pulls out a gun and shoots the man in the back of the head. At 21, he started a life sentence for a really stupid murder. Guy from my high school went to rob a corner shop at knife point. He pulled up with his push bike, went into the store and threatened the shopkeeper with a knife to give him all the money in the register. The shopkeeper refused and the robber was too to do anything, so he grabbed a pack of gum and ran out. 20 minutes later, the robber realized he left his bike behind in his panic, so he went back to get it. This was at the same time the police were questioning the shopkeeper on the incident. They swiftly arrested him there and then. I think he got 2 years for stealing gum at knife point. My half-brother decided it was a good idea to try and rob the restaurant he worked at. Didn't wear a mask or try to hide his voice in any way. At the time, he was hopelessly addicted to crack, so he obviously wasn't thinking straight when he convinced his dealer's girlfriend to help him out. She secured a gun for him, and he was dumb enough, or desperate enough, not to check and didn't realize it was a BB gun. They did manage to get out of the restaurant with $7,000, but the dealer and his very large friends were waiting for them when they came out. They beat the crap out of him, took the money, and left him unconscious for the police. He got 7 years in prison for armed robbery and grand larceny. He did manage to kick his drug habit in prison though. Kid I went to high school with used to break into homes in his neighborhood to steal phones with his younger brother. They always did seem to have a couple screws loose, but never thought they were capable of hurting anyone. Then one night, they robbed the wrong house. As they were sneaking into the kitchen, the owner of the house came in for a late night glass of water and caught them in the act. Unlucky for them, he was also a former Marine. They got into it, but one of the kids had a knife and started repeatedly stabbing the dude in the head. They ran off after that. But the next day they were arrested. One is still in juvie 5 years later, and the other one was sentenced to 30 years in state prison. Edit. Owner of the house is apparently still alive, but suffers from a lot of mental issues now. A few years back, one of the students attending the university I work at got caught trying to sneak a shitload of drugs into a local nightclub. The first time we found out about it was when some police officers turned up with a warrant to go through his room, and I was the lucky person chosen to go let them in. So I opened the door and oh dear lord, there's drugs everywhere. If you've ever seen one of those old-timey pick and mix shops with all the sweets in the big glass jars, imagine that, but with pills and wraps of powder instead. Everything else was super neat and tidy, and it was one of the cleanest student rooms I'd ever been in. Just that every flat surface had a container full of drugs or some other sort of paraphernalia on it. The student was in the 4th year of a master's degree and due to finish in 3 months. He ended up being charged with possession with intent to supply. And since a lot of the stuff he had in there was class A, he's now going to be in prison for a decade or 2. He was also expelled of the course and will still be on the hook for $60,000 of student debt afterwards. I once knew someone who swapped university courses midway through so that he could become a teacher in a subject he was more passionate about. We were pleased for him. He was really excited and it all got off to a great start. He eventually completed his degree and qualified as a teacher in that subject. However, he's no longer a teacher. Why is that? Well, turns out he had sex with 2 underage students and verbally harassed them afterwards. There was a failed 3rd attempt. He went to fled Italy for some reason. He had no connection there to escape justice, eventually turned himself in, and was arrested when he arrived back in the UK. Just shy of 3 years in prison, although he was paroled at around the halfway mark, 10 years on the UK sex offender register with a supplementary sexual harm prevention order, which controls his interaction with young people, banned from teaching for life. Apparently that wasn't all. I heard other gossips about his behavior in the classroom, which is deeply troubling, but not criminal, so nothing was done. I have no idea what he does now. People have seen him, spoken to him, but he doesn't speak on what happened. No idea what he was thinking or what he initially set out to achieve. Did he go into teaching so that he could do these things? Or did his mind somehow wrap a bit later on? Former high school teacher. He was a retired English teacher, former coach, former senior class advisor, confident for students at risk. Wife was also a teacher and both their kids went to our school and graduated. Turns out, He was being investigated for child, I think possession and distribution, not sure about solicitation. He was in school talking to my freshman class in his wife's room about preparing for the future properly the last day of classes. 2 weeks later, we read on the news and papers that state police, sheriffs, and city police raided his house and he killed himself in the woods behind his house. He had a laptop full of videos and pictures. It shook our town, to say the least. Luckily, the wife was retiring at the end of the year anyway, so she didn't have to live with the shame at the school. I felt so bad for her though. She and the kids were investigated and knew nothing about it. People hide their demons well, I guess. This is a long and complicated story, but here's a short summary. This all happened in the span of 6 months. A friend of a friend started dating a new lady immediately after his divorce. She was clearly more interested in his money than anything else, and was generally mean and an instigator of problems. But he didn't see that, regardless of how many times people warned him. They'd been dating for a bit, and because she had young children, they were older, her late 30s and him late 50s, and his lease was up soon, she convinced them that they needed to buy a house together. She got him to give her a portion of the down payment on the house in cash. He handed over $80K, which was actually most of the total cost. Then she didn't put his name on anything because his credit wasn't as good as hers. She convinced him to buy all the furniture, painting, flooring, and other stuff. Her excuse for that was claiming that she was going to pay for some of the remodeling and a new roof, which the house didn't need, but she lied about. She also convinced him to give the money for all those things in cash. When the house was nice and ready, he lived there for about 2 days before she dumped him. She said all this face to face. There's nothing in writing between them. There's no paper trail. There's no text messages. There's no witnesses. It just looks like she paid for the house, which is in her name. And that's the end of it. He has no recourse. Lost all of his savings, depression, a suicide attempt, which led to a lost job. Had to move back with his ex-wife. A friend in high school. Was popular, good looking, dude could have been a model, really smart, got accepted in an Ivy League school, and all he had to do was make sure he passed all his classes he was in. The last week of senior year he had a math exam and all he had to do was just show up and write his name on the exam. The teacher had set it up where you could get at least 40% by just writing your name. He just couldn't get a 0% or else he wouldn't pass. The dipshit decided to skip his exam and get high instead, failed the exam and the class and couldn't attend the Ivy League school. He eventually spiraled over the years into drugs and dead-end jobs. It's been 15 years since high school and last I heard he's still living at home. Could have went places in life but decided to get stoned instead. Hey, congrats, you made it to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, consider subscribing, and consider watching one of these videos you see on the screen. You may like them, you never know. Again, daily videos every single day. I am not gonna miss any day, I promise. And I hope you guys enjoyed this style of video. Leave in the comments what subreddit you want me to cover next, and some ideas for the next videos you would like to see. Alright, peace. Bye.